We have seen video emerge from the different players that have argued their case, and now they'll get to do so in front of an actual person. We're talking about Jeremy Pruitt, his wife. We're talking about Tennessee's chancellor, anybody associated with the program currently. And I was a little bit surprised to see on the video that has come out from the hearing that Phillip Fulmer was in attendance. So let me get your big picture thoughts. First of all, good morning, Caleb. How are you, sir?
I am doing great. Much better than Jeremy Pruitt and Phillip Fulmer today, I can tell you that.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like any fun at all. So let's work a little bit on today's tough question, brought to you by Craven Wings. If you haven't tried Craven Wings yet, you're crazy. It is never frozen, always fresh, phenomenal food, and they've got the Saturday brunch that is through the roof at the Chodo location. It is awesome. So we'll work on today's tough question as we work our way through this hearing. What do you expect to actually come out of this hearing today, Caleb Calhoun? As in, we're April 19th at the time of this recording, 10 a.m. Will we hear something 24 hours this week, this month, infinity? But what do you think? Because the NCAA is so unpredictable. What do you think the timeline is now, Caleb, or do we even know?
I think we will learn something in June. I've been pretty on that.
Okay.
I think we're going to learn something in June. Oh, I didn't even get the Today's Tough Question soundtrack. Didn't even get the music, Dave.
That is my fault. Let's go with today's tough question now, and it's brought to you by Craven Wings. Today's tough question, Craven Wings. Don't forget the brunch. Chodo, fantastic food across the board. I love their salads, too.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
You say June. Why say you June? It's on a real sense.
This is based on history. I base a lot of my predictions on history. Maybe that's bad. I don't know. But the last time Tennessee had a hearing like this was in June of 2011, and the results came out in August of 2011. So I gave it a 2-month window. I'm giving this one a 2-month window. I think the crux for Tennessee, and I've said this from the start, and I'm sticking with this. I've spoken about this at length. They never should have let Phillip Fulmer walk away with the severance package. They should have thrown him to the wolves just like they threw Jeremy Pruitt. And I think the NCAA is rightly going to ask, if you guys were so compliant, if y'all took this as seriously as we did, why did you let someone who is probably as dirty, whose hands are as dirty as Jeremy Pruitt's, walk away in a much lighter fashion? You paid him.
Okay. We've talked about this before, so I had a thought that you might go in that direction. So I'm going to play devil's advocate, but not 100% devil's advocate, because I do disagree with you a little bit. All right, you have Phillip Fulmer. Had you cut him, essentially, you would be cutting a legend from the university. And then you probably don't get his cooperation like today when he is actually at the hearing moving forward. So I would argue you would not cut Phillip Fulmer. I understand the pragmatics around what you're saying. I do, but I wouldn't cut Phillip Fulmer out of this deal because I think it could pragmatically hurt Tennessee. And, you know, he's a legend. He's one of the top 2 coaches in Tennessee football history.
There's a split the baby move here to pull the King Solomon. And that is Phillip Fulmer. You can let him walk away without a severance package. You can straight fire him. And then you say, if you want to be ever affiliated with this university ever again, you will cooperate with this NCAA investigation.
But can you take a hard stance? I mean, who has more power? Is it Donde Plowman, who's the chancellor, or is it Phillip Fulmer, who has a national title in his pocket? I could honestly argue that it's Phillip Fulmer. I think more people would rally around him than they would Plowman, who's done a great job, than they would Danny White, the athletic director. I think more people would rally around Phillip Fulmer if you took a hard line against him.
I don't think so. Not after what happened in January 2021. And I say that because we all knew, and we all accepted, by the way, everybody in Vol Nation accepted Phillip Fulmer's coup to make himself athletic director. And let's call it what it was. It was a coup. It was a straight up coup to install himself as an athletic director. That's fine if you're going to do that and then start overseeing the football search, but you better make the right football hire. He didn't. He didn't just make a terrible hire. He made a hire that got the university in trouble. And the university has every right. I think in January of 2021, all goodwill to Fulmer was lost at that point. It was, thanks for what you did as head coach for 16 years. You won a national championship. We're never going to forget that. But in this instance, we are moving on from you, and we are going to give you the Pruitt treatment of the sense of, from an athletic director perspective, we're not giving you a severance package. You wanted this job. You orchestrated a coup to take the job. You weren't qualified for the job. And this is the result of you having that job. And there's no way to around those facts.
Well, it's true, but Phillip Fulmer would argue that he was doing what is right for the university. And I would argue that at the time, some stability was the correct course of action. I didn't think he would hire the next Nick Saban or the next Josh Heupel. I did think he would hire a coach that could at least get the job done without cheating on just a crazy, insane level. So I would argue at the time that Tennessee fans were on board with him being AD. Would you not?
No, that's what I'm saying. They were on board with him being AD, but there was I'm not even knocking the coup. It was a coup, but I'm not knocking it. What I'm saying is, if you're going to do that, then there is a level of expectation that you should meet. And by any metric, Fulmer fell grossly short of that expectation. And not just not making the right hire, making a hire that put the university in serious trouble. And let's call it what it is, turning a blind eye to what was happening at the same time. Turning a blatant blind eye. I don't believe for a second Fulmer wasn't able to find out about what Jeremy Pruitt was doing. I'm not saying he was directly involved in the cover-up. I'm not saying he was involved in any of the cheating himself, but I'm saying that I think he, at the very least, willfully ignored evidence that showed Jeremy Pruitt was doing that.
Yeah, there are 3 levels: complicit and working with Jeremy Pruitt to cheat. I don't think either one of us believes that's the case. Right. There is being aware and looking the other way. Sounds like you think that's the case. And there's the third of just being completely ignorant by choice, because you can't sit in that office that's right next door to the football office and not be aware that something is going on as widespread as it's alleged to be. So it's kind of one of 3 choices, or you actually didn't know anything. But I have trouble believing he knew absolutely zero.
Right. He knew something. And that's why I say this isn't a this isn't a forget everything Fulmer did as a head coach. All I'm saying is you could have fired him without the severance package. You could have just made that point, the severance package. That's
Travis did ask, was a severance deal included in his hiring packet? I would assume yes, when he signed a contract, but you can break those if you fire a coach or personnel with cause. So the argument would be they fired him with cause because the athletic department got so inept with cheating that it ultimately undermined what he was able to do. But I still think there are a lot of people, we talk about different factions in the way you look at this. There are people younger than me that would say, burn him at the stake, who cares? There are people my age that still remember remember what he did winning a championship. I think a lot of those people might disagree with you, Caleb. I'm a little bit older than you, but throwing a legend under the bus is tough to do.
It is, but no one is saying that he can't ever take part in university stuff, or that his name shouldn't be in some rafters, or that there shouldn't be a street named after him, which there is. It's just in the context of the athletic director, he is not entitled. You should fire him for calls and say he's not entitled to the severance package. He dropped the ball massively. And then the only time I would go hardball is I would say, if he wasn't willing to cooperate with the NCAA after that, then I'm willing to go even more hardcore and say, all right, let's just forget everything you've done then. Because I will be willing to venture that Fulmer did work hard at recruiting, but we all know recruiting was Fulmer's big, strong suit. That's why Tennessee won a national title. I've said for a while, the more I've studied a little bit of college football history, I think Fulmer's recruiting success was a lot more about the institutional advantages Tennessee had in the 90s than it was about him recruiting.
All right, so Big Orange Trucker says he did this as a head coach. I think he means AD. He had to do this to compete. I still love Coach Fulmer. Pay him and revere him. On behalf of both me and Caleb Calhoun, I posted on the message board, agreed, even though Caleb doesn't agree at all. I just don't want to throw a guy under the bus when he was. Listen, it's Tennessee's fault they hired him. You and I both know that this is a job now as an athletic director at a major school that's for a CEO type. It's not for a former coach, right? So why doesn't the university carry the blame for hiring him in the first place?
Oh, they carry some blame, but let's not forget this. Some of that was on Fulmer because Fulmer willingly allowed I'm not saying he didn't orchestrate it. He didn't say, if you're loyal to me, you won't donate to the university, but he willingly allowed and stood for the massive split that happened among the boosters in the donor class after he was fired in 2008. Wasn't really going to speak up on behalf of the university and say, maybe you should donate here, maybe you should donate there. And he certainly wasn't going to do that when John Curry was named athletic director. So he had no problem with with half the booster class that was loyal to Fulmer working behind the scenes to undercut John Curry when Curry was athletic director. I got no love for John Curry. He was awful. I said he was an awful hire at the time. But Fulmer doing that, that's a big reason he was able to leverage getting that job.